I'm live. Hi, welcome. It's good to see that we already have quite a few here. I'm going to double check that you can hear me, that nobody starts to say you can't hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Here we go. So I am here to answer questions in this live video. I will be taking the first half of the hour to answer questions that were submitted ahead of time at askdanakWhite.com. So if you would like to ask questions that can be answered in future lives, sometimes I answer them on podcasts as well. If you want to listen to my podcast, it's just A Slob Comes Clean wherever you get podcasts. So it's out there. It's free. It's just basically like the radio, but on demand, kind of. Okay. I do want to make sure that you know that Take Your House Back is on sale right now. And I am going to make a big deal about this. I know some of y'all are like, oh my goodness, they talk about this all the time. Y'all, especially now that we go up to the major real price, when it's not on sale, people have been freaking out and saying, when is it going to go on sale again? So I want to make sure you know it's on sale. Go to aslobcomesclean.com/take. That is where you get that. It's the Take Your House Back course that I do with Dawn from Minimal Mom and Cass from Clutterbug. And the three of us come together and it's just it's kind of magical, right? So anyway, aslobcomesclean.com/take is my link for you to join that. I also put the link in the description of this. Okay, let's get to the questions. What I'm going to do is I will read the full question, but a lot of times what you will be seeing here will not be the full question. It'll be an abbreviated version. Okay. So, but I like to have that on there so that you can kind of follow along if you're showing up a little bit, into the question, answering the question. Okay. First question. I love the container concept. Yay. And have been working to implement it among my stuff. However, my partner is a collector, and any space I clear, he ends up filling back up with his space. Any advice? Okay, so let's talk about this. This is a very common problem. Okay, so first of all, I don't want you to think that, oh no, what's wrong with my partner? Why is he like this? Okay, this is my dog down here. So if y'all see me like doing a lot of this, she's needing some attention right now. Anyway, but so I want to make sure, because sometimes I feel like some people are like, what is wrong with this other person living in my house? Well, a lot of times it comes down to you've got the decluttering bug. You are into decluttering. You are watching decluttering people. You're watching some random lady from Texas talk about decluttering on YouTube, like for fun. You know what I mean? So you're in a different place. And so this ends up being a very common thing, is maybe they are just like, wait, we've always lived a certain way and now you're super into this. My main advice on this is for you to really focus in on the visibility rule. Okay. The visibility rule means that you focus your efforts on the most visible spaces in your home. I like to start with the place that people would see if they entered your home, like came to your front door, or if you're like my in-laws and you don't ever use your front door, you only use through the, garage or whatever, that like how people would come in to your home, focus on that. Here's what that does. It improves the function of your home. It also improves, sorry, I'm just paranoid that you can't hear me. Sorry. Oh, you'll make me laugh. Okay. Come here, sweetie. Somebody just told me not to bring you on here. They must not know how I don't like being told what to do. Okay, here we go. Come get in the frame. Come on. There we go. All right. Here we go. So focus on visibility. Visibility is key because that will improve your home immediately. It will encourage you, just gonna trip all over my stuff. It will encourage you to declutter again sooner, and it impacts your home. And the people in your home start to see what happens when you declutter. So that may be what you're already doing. It may be that you are working on your entryway that used to just kind of be a dumping ground, and then it becomes a dumping ground again as you end up doing space, clearing space. However, Um, I think a lot of times what could be happening here, and again, all I have is the question, right? This is not a conversation for me to get all the clarification. So I'm just going on my guesses here. A lot of times what happens is when people get inspired to declutter, they start in those storage spaces or random drawers or whatever. And you're like, I cleared this drawer. I love this drawer being cleared. And then it just kind of, they see that as oh, storage space is open now. I can store more stuff. But when you work on those visible areas and you're working on the function and the aesthetics that happen with decluttering, then it is more likely, first of all, your family's going to see it. They're going to see the difference. And it's more likely that the purpose of that space is to not hold stuff. And it's like the decluttering reveals that the purpose of that space is to not be storage. Okay. I'm not saying this is perfect. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's not going to be frustrating along the way. I'm not saying you're not going to have conversations and things, but focusing on visibility, like for us, our entryway was always just a dumping ground. Okay. But when I decluttered that visible space and it was like, oh, like one of the things my kids would say when they were little and we were going through this decluttering process is I can remember a time or two, like definitely more than once, where one of my kids was like, oh, our bathroom, they wouldn't have said entryway, but dining or whatever, looks like other people's houses. Like in their mind, they're like, well, this is what ours looks like. It's a dumping ground. Well, now it looks like an entryway. And so they adjusted to that over time. Does that make sense? So focus on visible spaces. And remember too, that the part of the visibility rule is that we focus on the visible space, we get that space decluttered, and then we get inspired to declutter again and we go back to that space, even though it feels like, why would I go back to that space? How am I ever going to make progress if I can just go back to that space that I originally did? But when we go back to that space and we start in that space again, this time, even though in your mind, if you've lived with clutter a long time and you've been frustrated by it, even if in your mind you felt that way, you're like, oh, I got to work in this space again. You're going to realize that what took you 2 to 3 hours to really make hard decisions about things that had just been dumped there and had sat there or been stored there, and they shouldn't have been for years. All those things were hard decisions. This time, it's been 3 weeks and it's just people, and maybe you too, have randomly placed things there and it's just trash and easy stuff that needs to be dealt with. And you're done in 2 or 3 minutes. And then you kind of just start to adjust, your family starts to adjust to the fact that, oh, that's what this space is now. It is actually, entryway that's supposed to be aesthetically pleasing for people entering our house or whatever. And just like, I always say, follow the visibility rule to help yourself build momentum. Because by the time you get to those storage spaces, you're going to have a different view of your home. You're going to have a different view of your stuff and all that. You just come right back on camera, sweetie. But as you do that, it's also your family's going to be adjusting to that too. So I'm saying, like, it's a gradual way to really build that momentum and change how you feel about your home and your stuff. Make sense? Okay. All right. Next question. What is your view on taking pictures of those things that are hard to part with for sentimental reasons? Is it a good idea, or is it better for one's mental health just to let it go and eventually forget about it? Okay, this is a great question, because a lot of people, the reason I say this is a great question is that a lot of times when people say, oh, I feel sentimental, I have all these feelings, I have, such attachment to things, and there's all these reasons, and there's history and blah, blah, blah. They're always, always, always well-meaning and truthful. I mean, like, they're not wrong. Comments saying, oh, just take pictures and you'll be fine. Okay. And y'all know me, I never do short answers, right? Because I'm like, oh, I'm the person who, like, don't give me a short answer. I got to have it all because I have all the things I've thought through of why I'm going to keep it. And it's like I have to break through that and like pull that apart to be able to do some of these things. So that's why I'm like, I'll be here to give you your long, super drawn out answers for this. Okay. So on this, first of all, I want to be clear. I am not a mental health professional, and so I cannot speak to that. Like, I do not know that. And my guess would be that it would be different for different people in different situations. Here's where I'm going to come in as the decluttering expert and give you my answer. My answer is, because you gave me two options: taking pictures so that you can get rid of it, or is it better to just let it go? Okay. My answer is whichever one allows you personally to be able to let it go. Do you need to take a picture, or do you need to just let it go? All right. So whatever moves you forward, because the problem that happens when we just say, oh, this is the answer to sentimental stuff, take a picture and you're done. For some people, they're like, maybe I should, rip it off like a Band-Aid, which is kind of what the other option sounds like here. But the debating of, is that the way? Is this the way? That is not helpful if it's making you keep stuff in your house that otherwise needs to be gone, right? Like, because it sounds like these things need to be gone and you're trying to decide what's the best way. Should I just get rid of it or should I take a picture? It's for you. It almost sounds like, and again, all I have to go on is this question, but it almost sounds like in this question that you would rather just, let it go. But for some reason, you've felt like, because you've heard the advice that I should take a picture, that you're like, wait, should I take a picture first? I don't take pictures. I mean, that's just me. It honestly never occurs to me. And it's rarely, I may have of some of my kids' art at, when they were much younger and doing stuff like that. But as a rule, it never occurs to me. It's not something that I do, but I know it's very helpful for people. So the issue here is, what is helpful for you? What helps you let go? That right there is how you decide. Does this let me let go, or does this keep me from letting go? And there's your answer. Okay. All right. Next. Okay. I'm trying to follow your steps. This is referring to my 5-step, no mess, progress and only progress decluttering process. If you would like to get a printable of those 5 steps, you can go to aslobcomesclean.com/5, FIVE. I believe that the link is probably in the description, not for sure. But you can go there. It's also written in excruciating detail in Decluttering at the Speed of Life. So, but you can get that. It's free when you get my newsletter, or not the book, the 5-step printable. Okay. I'm trying to follow your steps, and it is the only thing that actually works for me. I get overwhelmed easily. So the steps are designed to keep you from being overwhelmed, right? To keep you moving even when you feel overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed easily. I've hoarded in the past, not wanting to get rid of things I might regret. I'm finding it difficult as I hate the clutter and overwhelm of stuff, but panic when I let things go. I've made decluttering mistakes in the past. I panic I'll make more, but want a peaceful, manageable home. Okay, so a couple things here. The question is really, there's maybe not a question, but what you are wanting an answer to is, it's either how do I prevent decluttering regret, which I don't know that that's exactly what you're asking, or maybe it's, how do I not let the fear of decluttering regret stop me from making progress? Okay. A couple things here is, you said that my steps actually work for you. Okay. That you say, I get overwhelmed easily. These steps, it says, I'm trying to follow your steps, and it's the only thing that actually works for me. So I want you to celebrate and be excited and proud of yourself for the progress that you have made that you weren't able to make before you started following these steps. Okay. So really be like, I am making a difference. You say, I have hoarded in the past. So you don't like the clutter. You're doing better now. You're experiencing success. but you're fearing having some of that decluttering regret. I get it. I have experienced decluttering regret. Just recently at prom, my daughter was like, I thought I had, these foo-foo earrings that would have been perfect with this. And did I declutter all of those when we moved? And she was really irritated with herself. And then I felt guilty because I was like, she gets to hear me speak because she'll come and sell books and stuff. And I'm like, and also we live together and I have helped her declutter before, but I'm like, oh, I feel bad if that's what has happened. Do you know what I mean? Like if you decluttered these things and wow, you actually needed this perfect pair of earrings or whatever. So yeah, that right there, decluttering regret is real. That's all I have to say. It is real. And that's not all I have to say. You'll know I'm going to say more. It is absolutely real. I have experienced it many times. And yet you said, I want a peaceful, manageable home. I am experiencing success. The only way to have a peaceful, manageable home is to get under your clutter threshold. Manageable. Your clutter threshold is the amount of stuff that you personally can easily keep under control. Okay. As you do that, you're going to start to put more value on the peacefulness and the manageability of your home. And it's going to make the regret sting less. You're going to experience regret. I have decluttered things that I wish I had not decluttered. And yet I look at my house and my house is under control and it's manageable. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. If you have to choose between a house that is easy to manage and possibly, not guaranteed, but having the possibility of regret. I choose a house that's easy to manage. Okay. Those, let's see, this is a quote from one of my books. Let me think if I can say it correctly. But people whose homes are consistently under control choose regret over clutter. And really, they're just choosing the possibility of regret. Okay. This was a moment for me. I was in my friend's house and she had a really cute chair or something and we were talking about it and something came up and I was like, oh, I need something like that, but I don't have, what if something that came up, she had done, I know what it was. She had gotten rid of something and then she wished she hadn't. And so then she had bought this one to replace it or something. You can read the book because that's the actual story. It's me trying to remember in the moment right now, but whatever. And I was like, oh, I said something about, fearing that I would regret getting rid of this. She's like, oh yeah, that happens to me all the time. She basically was like, yeah, I'm constantly regretting having gotten rid of something and then having to rebuy it. But she was choosing that over keeping things that she didn't need in the moment that would then end up make her not like her house and not be able to manage her home. So anyway. All right. 2 more. Here we go. We moved 9 months ago and I still have so much wall art I have not hung yet, even though I want to. I understand procrasticlutter, but it seems like too much to do right away. So it's become exploding head clutter. Help. Love from Tennessee. Okay. So my head explosion rule means that if something just makes me feel like my head is going to explode, then I'm like, okay, it's got to go. Right. Okay. But she also referred to it as procrasticlutter. Okay. It's the getting things on the wall. So if it was a head explosion, then the answer would be just to get rid of it because it's not worth it. I'm going back and forth too much, not worth this kind of, angst within my mind. But you referred to it as procrasticlutter. I know for me, like I have some anxiety I'm not a mental health professional. This is not a mental health diagnosis. Okay. On my part, I'm just saying like, I have a fear of hanging something in the wrong place. Right. And yet every single time I just go ahead and hang it up, I'm so glad I did. Even if I realized later, oh, I don't want it actually there. I want it over here. I know there are some people, I don't want to put a hole in my wall unless I know it's going to be perfect. Y'all, the hole in the wall is understandable. People whose homes are under control have them too. Okay. It's barely noticeable, but lots and lots of wall hangings. And I'm speaking this as myself. I'm not talking about the person asking the question. I'm talking about for myself, but lots and lots of wall hangings leaned up against the wall and making it hard to walk through a room and making me constantly nervous that I'm going to kick it and break the glass or whatever. That is, it makes a house look messy, unfinished, where if it's on the wall, but there's actually a hole over here, that just looks like a house that's normal, right? Like, so I had to go, I've just got to put it on the wall in the best place I can right now, because here's the beauty of it. You said it. You said this is procrastinator. You said, I understand procrastinator. That's what this is. It's a matter of hanging on the wall in the best place that you can right now, and seeing it there is so much more likely to actually have your brain adjust to, you know what, actually that should be over there instead of over here. Okay. You know, but as long as it's sitting there and it's just this big daunting thing of, oh, I've got to hang everything up, then none of that is happening. Okay. So the procrastinator means things that feel like they're not actually clutter. So I shouldn't be spending my decluttering energy on this. I should be doing something more impactful. I should be doing some real decluttering instead of hanging up pictures on the wall. Sometimes it's because we go, well, hanging up pictures on the wall sounds fun. I don't deserve to do fun because there's stuff everywhere. And yet hanging the pictures on the wall means that they're no longer stacked and leaned against the wall on the floor. Okay. And they're in their home, even if it's not perfect. And it's shocking, amazing to me as a non-decorator, as somebody who does experience this fear of putting things in the wrong place. Even when I put it in the wrong place, I go, oh my goodness, my house just instantly looks so much better because I've gone from clutter on the floor because they aren't in their real home to actually being on the wall. And even when it's not perfect, I'm so much happier that way. Okay. Last one that I'll take from here, and then I will take a few from the those of you who are watching live. Okay. I am familiar with your process. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, what I do is I read the whole question that was submitted, and then there is an abbreviated version that you see there, okay, underneath me. I am familiar with your process for decluttering and found it very helpful. My question is about my paper crafting supplies. I work on them in 2 rooms. The ones I'm currently working on are on my bedroom shelves. The other supplies are stored in a room intended for a primary bedroom. So each room is the container and the purpose is established. However, in the larger storage room, it is so full, I have little room to work. I need to establish where things go, what drawer, shelf, etc. I know somehow I need to get like items together to see how many I have. How do I decide what goes where in the middle of the mess? Okay, this is a great question because it's one that a lot of people face, right? Like you have this 1 or 2, you know, or 7 overwhelming spaces. And you're like, how do I do this? Well, the good news is you've already got stuff like in the craft area. Like that's where it is. So as we go through this, let's talk through. Okay. So you said, I work on them in 2 rooms. The ones I'm currently working on are on my bedroom shelves. If that's where you want them to be, that is great. I'm never going to be the person who's like, oh, you shouldn't have this in that room or this in that room. However it functions in your home is what you should do. But I'm going to ask because you said the other supplies are stored in a room intended for a primary bedroom. Okay. So each room is the container and the purpose is established. However, in the larger storage room, it is so full, I have little room to work. Do you mean work on the crafts or do you mean work on decluttering? Okay, so let's answer from both of those perspectives. If you're talking about I have little room to work on the crafts, then you would go into it with decluttering and function being the primary thing that I'm going to focus on. So if I want to be able to work on crafts in this area, then workspace deserves room in this container that is a room first. Okay. So every space that you, if you're new here, the container concept is that space is finite and every room in your home is a container, meaning it serves as a limit for what can be there. So the room itself, this craft room, is a container. If you wanted to work in it, you say, okay, if the main thing I want to do in here is work on stuff, then that is the first thing that deserves space in this container of a room, right? So I am going to clear things out. I'm going to go in there saying, I am going to make this space, usable and functional as a workspace, which means things are going to have to actually leave. And having that mindset before you go in is very helpful in helping you be ready to let go of things. If you're like, okay, it's not just that I'm here to rearrange, it's that I am here to create an empty space that can then be my workspace. Okay. So going into that, but let's also go at it, and then I'll answer kind of both questions too. From what if you just mean to work, like to work as far as decluttering being the work that I'm doing, right? So as you come into this space, let's say that it is so full. Okay, let's picture, you say it is so full, I have little room to work. Let's say you're talking about decluttering and you're saying that the room is full to the doorway and I can't even get into that room to do anything. Okay. In that case, again, stuff is going to have to leave, right? Like it needs to have less in there so that you will ever be able to function. All right. But whatever space that you can get to, wherever you can get to in this space, you follow the steps. You follow my 5-step process. Again, it's in Decluttering a Speed of Life. You can get a printable for free at aslobcomesclean.com/5. If you go there and if you get those steps, the first step, y'all know what it is, right? Everybody together say trash, right? So we're going to start with the trash. So you take your black trash bag or your recycling bin or whatever. And even if you think, no, that's all my craft stuff, it's good stuff. It probably is, but you're still going to look for trash, because a lot of times with craft supplies, there's packaging, there's, dried up stuff that's not, as useful as it used to be. There's paper scraps sometimes that you're like, wait a minute, why did I keep those paper scraps when I, trimmed all these things? It's all the trimmed off pieces. Why did I keep that? So those types of things, I'm just going to stand at the place where I can access, and I'm going to look for trash to put in my trash bag or recycling bin, whatever you already have accessible. Okay. As I do that, I am making immediate impact, immediate progress on here, because those things have to be done anyway, right? Like if you get in there and you get to decluttering, you're going to have to throw the trash in the trash can or the recycling bin, right? Like you have to. So let's start with that, because you can do that without having to get into the middle of things and be able to see and access everything. Just go ahead and get the trash that you can easily access. Then go with easy stuff. Easy stuff is anything that has an established home. So what can you reach from the part that you can get into and, get that out of this space because it actually belongs somewhere else in the house. It's just somehow ended up here, which is very, very common in situations where a room is packed full. Other things from the house just kind of migrate there in a moment of, I don't know where to put this, whatever, or I don't, need to hide this real quick before somebody comes over, and I just throw it in there. So you deal with that stuff. You get donations, meaning what can I see and access easily that I can get out of here straight into the donate box. Oh, okay. And when you look at it that way, and you're just looking for one category of item, just trash, just easy stuff, just a donation, you can see that. When you're just looking at a mass of stuff and thinking, what do I do with all this stuff? That's where you get overwhelmed and you don't know what to do. But if you're looking for just a category, then it's like you're going ahead and dealing with those things. And as you do that, you've already made some progress. You haven't had to get anywhere, and you've had this goal of there's got to be less in this space anyway, right? But let's talk about, let's say you can get to the middle of the room and it is just, I have so much The larger storage room, it is so full, I have little room to work. So you've got to reduce. But you do the best that you can, meaning you're going to stand there and let's say you've already gotten out all the trash, the easy stuff, and the declutter, which makes it significantly easier for me to get to and access more because I don't have all this stuff that I actually shouldn't even be in this room. I already know that. I just had to actually do it, right? So as you get to this point, then as you pick up an item, one item at a time, and you ask yourself the question, if I needed this item, where would I look for it first? If I needed green foam paper, whatever, if I needed green foam paper, where would I look for it first? And you just think, okay, if I was looking for green foam paper, what's the first drawer or cabinet or whatever that I would open? And let's say it's way over there and I can't actually access it because there's all this stuff in front of it. I get it as close as I possibly can and I remove something easy or clutter, something trash or a donation from that space so that I'm not making it any worse over there. Because remember, things have to leave the room. So I'm making that one-for-one decision. I'm getting it as close as I can. When I just say, oh, I'm going to need this, but I can't get there right now, and I set it aside, it doesn't force me to deal with reality. And so many times when I'm forced to deal with reality and I go, okay, I would look for a green paper over there. I got to, wait a minute. I don't like this color green or whatever. Just making yourself do the take it there now as close as you can is so often the thing that then triggers in your brain, wait a minute, actually, this is something that can go. So it didn't present as easy or a donation or trash before. But when I start to go through that process of taking it there now as best I can, even if I can't do it perfectly, then it often reveals itself as trash or donation. Okay. And then you keep doing that and as you keep going, more and more things are going to identify themselves as trash and donations that maybe didn't look that way in the beginning, but as you go and you start to see progress and as you get in there, you're also going to start to realize, yeah, I got to get rid of some stuff. Because when I was just thinking of that's my craft stuff, I'm like, well, I love craft stuff. I can't get rid of craft stuff, right? But when I'm actually in there and I'm seeing, oh, wow, I have got I can't even move in here. Just that on its own helps you to be willing and able and ready to get rid of more stuff, which is ultimately the only thing that's really going to change this place. Okay. All right. I am going to take questions from those of you who are watching live. I do want to remind you, okay, because I know there will be some of you who will miss it and you'll be sad, that Take Your House Back, the course that I do with Dawn from The Minimal Mom and Cass from Clutterbug, is on sale right now. Y'all, it's an amazing price. And some of y'all missed it last time and we're like, oh my goodness. So yeah, grab it now while it's on sale. Go check it out to see if it's an investment that makes sense for you. Go to aslobcomesclean.com/take. That's my link. And I would love for you to use that. Okay. All right. Let's go through. If you have already asked a question, go ahead and ask it again with 3 question marks at the front, because that kind of gives me an idea, or it just kind of catches my eye a little bit better. Okay. I have no clutter nor dedicated space issue, not even for sentimental stuff. However, some of those make me more sad than happy, and I want to get it out, but I just can't part from it. Any advice? Okay, so you don't have clutter or dedicated space issue. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds like maybe you're doing pretty well, except for these sentimental things. So I go through the same process with sentimental stuff that I do with every other thing. Okay, so like I literally use my decluttering questions for any and every item. Okay, so even if something is super sentimental, I ask myself the question, if I needed this item, where would I look for it first? Okay, which Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, this is my baby rattle. Well, I would look for it first. Whatever random place comes in your mind, that's great. If you have a keepsake box, maybe that's where you put it. But that right there gives me the place where it's going to be. But so many times with the sentimental stuff, what that does is it helps me realize, oh, I would never go looking for it, which is then, what I admit when I ask myself the second decluttering question, which is, if I needed this item, would it ever occur to me that I already had one? Well, asking that question, oftentimes, if something is sentimental, but I really don't want it in my house, I don't need it, I would never ever use it, it helps reveal that. Like, okay, I'm not saying this isn't sentimental. I am simply saying I literally would never ever go looking for it. So I'm able to part with it, not rejecting it, but just dealing with my reality. I live a life where I'm never going to go look for this baby rattle, and then if it comes down to it, and I have put it in places, and I know you said you don't have a dedicated space issue, which is great. But for those who do, when it comes down to that, it's like, okay, let's say you do have a keepsake box and you put your baby rattle in there, and then you put your baby spoon in there, and then you put your first grade report card in there, and then you put your graduation cap in there, and you do all this. Well, as that is full, and then you have something else that's sentimental and you want to go put it in there, you don't buy another keepsake box. Instead, you start using that dedicated, defined, limited space of the keepsake box as something that makes you realize, okay, I can keep anything, but I can't keep everything. So is this thing that I answered, where would I look for this first? Oh, my keepsake box, right? Is this thing worth the space that it will take up in here? Is it worth me getting rid of something else that at one point I thought was sentimental enough to go in this space? Is it worth that space? That means I have to give this item up. And that's how you one for one it. And that's how we keep the house under control, right? Is by giving things a definite space. Okay. I have one bedroom that has no purpose, and it ended up being storage. I mean, this is what happens, right? Like, this is totally what happens, where lots of things go that I don't know where to put. What do you think about the storage room? I think that you are asking a lady on the internet, which means you want that to not be a storage room, right? Okay, so again, we go with, what's the function of this space? What do I want to achieve in here? Do I want it to be somebody in this family's bedroom? Or do I want it to be, do I want this to be a guest room or whatever, so that I can say, sure, come on, Aunt Sylvia, or whatever. Yeah, you can come totally stay at our house, whatever. Like, what is the purpose of this? Go into that space saying, that's what the purpose of this room is going to be. So I can't have all this stuff in here, which means I'm going to go item by item. I'm going to get rid of trash first. I'm going to take the easy stuff that does have a home and somehow drifted in here, get that out. I'm going to get the donations out. And then I'm going to ask myself the decluttering questions about every single thing in this thing, because it can't live here, because the function of this room is this function that I've chosen for it to be. Okay. Let's see. Do you have a good way to store photos? We have tons, and I don't want to get rid of them. We could scan them and put them on digital storage, but I know at that point we would never look at them. I mean, so y'all know me, right? Which I know that there's always random people who stop by and you don't know me. So here you go. I am not here's the best way to store photos. I am what space do you have in your home? Like, this is how I do it in my home. Where would I look first for photos that aren't being displayed? Okay. Well, for me, it is, it's technically in the dog's room, but it's like what was their dining room. It has like a built-in cabinet thing. I'm like, that right there, that's where I look first for them. Okay. That's my space for them. That determines how many I can keep. Okay. Which means every photo that I run across as I'm decluttering, or every pack of photos, I'm like, okay, well, where would I look first for it? I got to take it in there. Oh, I don't want to put any in there that are not actually, space worthy. They're not actually cabinet worthy. And so I am going to, a lot of times that'll make me flip through and go, oh yeah, there's pictures of people's feet here, whatever, and get rid of a few so that I'm only putting in there. But that that is how I do it. I say, this is the space that I have for photos that doesn't take up space that we need for other things to function in our actual life. Okay. This is the space I can dedicate to that. And then I let that space make the decision for me. Okay. So this is the limit of the space, which means I don't want to put things in there that I'm just going to have to declutter later when I need to put something else in there. So it really helps me evaluate things that way. Okay. When your mind wants to do steps 1 through 3 at one time, or you find yourself sorting before getting to step 4, I have to redirect myself so much. Is that something that will get better? Yes, it will. Just remember too, like steps 1 through 3, if you want to do those at the same time, that's fine. Like the reason they're in steps is because I get overwhelmed and I'm like, okay, I just need one thing to focus on. And I do this, but yeah, you're also going to find trash. You're going to find donations. You're going to find easy stuff as you keep going, even though you thought you got all of that in the beginning. The one thing I will say here is the sorting. Be super careful. Remember, I don't know what you mean by sorting, but most people think that's a have-to step of decluttering. And in reality, I only do one item at a time. The closest thing to sorting I would do would be the consolidate part of the 5th step, which is where I put like items together. I mean, just maybe it would help you to have the printout, to have the actual printout from, of the 5 steps, because that might give you something to kind of go back to and check on. Okay. No, I do not. Because if I gave you any kind of advice on this, anybody in my real life heard me saying that, they'd be like, Dana, seriously, y'all know my car is ridiculous. Okay. Okay, I feel like that's the second part of a question. Okay, these are questions about the Take Your House Back. You can go to support@takeyourhouseback.com and she will answer all of those questions. Okay, that's not my job, and I'm so thankful it's not my job. So we have a wonderful, wonderful person who does all of that for us. So, next. Oh, that's the same one. Looking for question marks. Oh, okay, I need to go up farther, don't I? My mom has inherited a lot of clutter from my grandparents who are still living, assisted living. How does she take her house back when it technically isn't her stuff she's drowning in? Okay, so this is a similar question to, that I get, and I personally have experience at this time of like, what about when you have, young adult kids and they are not technically settled in their forever home and you want to be helpful, but you also don't want it to just live everywhere. And what you're dealing with here is a very, very common thing. So, I'm not sure if you're wanting to help your mom or if this is she has this question. Do you know what I mean? But ultimately, when you bring something into your home, it has to have a space. Now, the sad part here, which you hate to even talk about, is the fact that they're probably never going to move out of the assisted living, right? Like it does happen. My mother lived in my mother-in-law lived in a nursing home for a short period of time, couple months, and did come home for a while. But normally when someone moves to assisted living, it's the last place that they're going to live there for a long time, right? So this becomes an issue of what space do you have in your home to store things for them? Because in some cases it might be like, I'm willing to store this because it makes them feel better, right? But like my kid who is about to, completely move out on his own, I'm like, hey, and I offered this. I said, that shelf in your closet of your room, you are more than welcome to use that to store things that you don't need in this place that you're moving into now, but that you might want in the future. I said, that's fine. And so I said, here's a box that will fit on that shelf. And that is the place that, this is the limit. Okay. So he has that. And it becomes like, okay, that immediately starts to identify which are my favorite things because the space is not unlimited. Right. So for her, it might be, but because I know what can happen here is you're like, I don't want to necessarily assimilate it into my own home yet, because maybe there's some, kind of, believe me, this phase of life can be really hard, and I have been through it. And so I totally know. I've been through it with my in-laws. But it becomes an issue of, okay, what can I do? What space am I willing to designate to storage? Which means I can't just pull everything. I can't bring everything into my home. I can only bring in what I can store. And the only space that I have to store is that closet, or the only space that I have to store are those shelves up there. So it's like, tell me what your favorite things are. And then, so it basically, it's everything needs to have a place, even if that is a storage place. Everything needs to have an actual place in the home, because when it doesn't, that's when it's clutter, right? Okay. What are my hobbies? Some declutterers on YouTube seem to make decluttering their only hobby. Oh my goodness. Decluttering is not my hobby. Y'all know I don't love it, right? Like, I mean, I come at this from the perspective of the person who just has to, but I'm not doing this because decluttering is fun to me. That's why I still have to follow my own 5 steps, right? What are my hobbies? Honestly, here's what I'll say on this. I mean, what do I do? I love gardening, right? I'm not good at it at all, but I'm having a lot of fun. But what I will say on this is, because I've had this question, some from people who are like, okay, I've been decluttering and I've been decluttering and I've been decluttering. How do I know when I can stop? I'm pretty sure I'm done, but I just can't seem to stop. I'm like, in those cases, it sometimes feels like maybe decluttering has become your hobby. But for me, I have decluttered my home, and it is still not perfect, but it's functional. So I can do the things I want to do. So what do? I do things like, I have a podcast, I write books. So like this job, which is not a hobby, it's a job now, but it's like that frees me up to do the things that I want to do. So it's like, when you're decluttering, remember, why was it that you wanted to declutter? Was it so that you could, spend your time doing something else? One of the things, I did a podcast with someone who, we were specifically talking about a hoarding situation. And she said she was loving making progress finally in decluttering using my process, because she felt like any time before, when family would come to visit her, all they did was declutter. That's all they worked on. And she was like, now I've got it decluttered so that we can spend time doing fun stuff. And I'm like, yes, which is just a story that I thought of as with your question. Okay. I love sorting and organizing, and have to constantly redirect myself to just look for trash or whatever step I'm on instead of sorting. Okay. All right. So I think this goes along with that other question, possibly. You said, I love sorting and organizing. I don't talk about organizing, right? Like, I mean, the way I get organized is to declutter. The way I recommend you get organized is just declutter. Just get the stuff out that you don't need, and a space will be naturally organized. So what I think you need to do in this situation is remember and recognize that decluttering and organizing are not the same thing. And what you need to focus on is just remind yourself, I am just decluttering. I am not organizing at this point. I am simply getting the stuff out that should not be in this space, either because I don't need it, or because there's no room for it. Okay. All right. How do I overcome start paralysis? Also, are there any guided groups to help me not feel alone and also have accountability and guidance? Yes. Okay. So how do you overcome start paralysis? You start with the trash. Okay. You start with that, because trash is decision-free and emotion-free. Okay. It is something to do that has to be done, and it gets you going. It also means that you stop looking at the overall mountain of stuff, which is overwhelming, because there's emotional stuff in there and difficult stuff in there. And you start looking at individual items, which does this thing in your brain. It helps you adjust and be ready to keep going. Okay. So that's how you get started, is start with the trash. There is something I don't like to use the word magical because it's not magical. It's real. Like it is legit. It makes a huge impact. As far as a group to help you, I do have a Patreon group, patreon.com/aslobcomesclean. That is my private group, and the people in there are absolutely lovely, and they give fantastic advice, and they follow my process. I think that is the beauty of it, is that we've got a group of people who are all speaking the same language about decluttering, okay? Because if you follow my methods, you probably know, and you probably were drawn to them because you've had experiences before where you're like, you say something about decluttering and people like jump on it and they give you all these, oh, just do this, just do that, just do this, whatever. And you're like, oh no, I'm trying to do the trash first. And they're like, oh, do this other thing first. You're like, no, that never works. Or pull everything out. And you're like, no, that's a disaster waiting to happen. So the Patreon group, we all speak about decluttering using these strategies, and it's a truly lovely place. So yes. And people will just like post their progress pictures and all that. So I think you would love it there. Let's see. Where do I look for someone that can hire me? You were asking all the right questions, right? I promise I have not asked her to ask these questions, but thank you for asking them, because I have where you can find someone to help you, that you can hire to help you make the bulk of the decisions. You find them at declutteringcoaches.com. That is my website. Those are my coaches. Everybody listed there is trained in my method, certified by me, and they are, they're lovely, and they understand the real struggles of their clients. So there is a map there in case you can find somebody who, we're still building and getting more. There's lots of coaches, but if there's not someone in your area, most of them also do coaching online. So it's been super fun to work with them and train them and get to see what all they're doing and helping people. It's really, really fun. Okay. Take a few more questions. Sorting is make it fit consolidating. I will definitely try. I am just decluttering right now, self-talk. Yeah, so a lot of times when people talk about sorting, they are often talking about like kind of what I used to do, which was like, I just thought this is how you're supposed to declutter. I'm going to make a pile of stuff for this and a pile of stuff for keep or whatever. So it's just one of those words that people tend to say when they're organizing. So just be really careful about that. Tips on how I get my family to help. I am off work for almost 12 hours. They are at home working. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the best way to get your family helping is the 5-minute pickup. Okay. When you can, declutter. Okay, good. She's just sniffing, not throwing up. I'm just making sure. She's been very anxious this whole time. Is there somebody out there? Is there a cow outside that you want to go see? You can't go see the cows anyway. But yeah, so that is 5-minute pickup is the greatest way to bring everybody in working together immediately. Any decluttering that you can do is very helpful there, because it just makes a house easier to keep under control. But as far as changing other people, there's not a way. So focus on your stuff and your routines first. And know that this is a very common frustration that people have. You are far from alone in feeling frustrated about that. Okay, take your house back. Is it a big review of what you ladies have already put out on YouTube? So the difference in Take Your House Back is that we are together, okay? And we are teaching it together and coming at it from our unique perspectives to put it into, lesson by lesson, how to take your house back. And the fun of that to me is how many times we come at things from very different perspectives and arrive at the same thing. And so the difference is that we're together. Okay. So all of us have so much content out there. Absolutely. If you can't afford it, you go and watch the videos, do all of that. But there is a lot of value in the process of the course and in the course itself. So yeah, that's a great one. Great question. Just remember, so I'm about to be done here. Take Your House Back is on sale right now, and you can go to aslobcomesclean.com/take. That's my link to sign up for that. I think it's May 3rd that the sale ends. So you want to get in on that right now. Okay, I'm going to finish there. It's been so much fun. And I will talk to y'all. Should be here next week. Okay. All right. Bye, y'all.